Hey guys, Joe here from TBIInfinitey, bring you guys another Buddyfight deck profile, and we have my Superheroine post level up. This is the Wrath of Maiden, Blazer Frill version instead of the party suppression type. That's usually the main build, the OTK kind of style, but this is a more control-y build, which I really like about the deck. It's a little tempo, which is what I like about this a little more than just straight face, because there's like if it's not really like Purgs or Thunder Empire, I think straight aggression just can get shut down a lot easier if it's not those decks. So that's why I kind of like this deck. It's a little flexible. It can OTK at times. It can play decently defensively. It can go in and disrupt opponent's plays. I just like it. I like it a lot. Anyway, my buddy is Uniform Warrior Racer Frill. She's a 2/1 size 1 with the ability to draw a card if you have another superhero when she enters the field, and she has move. So basically, the style of this deck, it's just basically twos, ones, and zeros. It's sometimes in that order, like a 2 on the left or right, and then a 0 on the right, and then a 1 in the center. For good reason, I will go into a little later. But regardless, this deck, this card is just really just help to replenish your hand. So, anyways, let me just get on to the rest of the cards. We have 2 copies of Shiny Mobile Uniform Warrior Jewelry Frill, 2/1/1 size 0. It has the ability whenever during either attack phase, if it leaves the field, I get a gauge and a life. So if I return to hand on my turn with Wrath of Maiden skill, or if she's destroyed on my opponent's turn, then I get a gauge and a life. And she lowers the opponent's centers by 2k, both power and defense. So it's just really helpful against decks like Chaos, where they just have 2 centers, so you can make Gear God have 4k defense, and then if you have Wrath of Maiden, so she gives all cards plus 2k, you can make this 4k, so it can actually hit Gear God by itself. It's a little thing. So it's pretty good against matchups like that, and that's why I really like it. And even if it's the center effect's not really useful, just the fact that I gain a gauge in life just really can help with my resources. Then we have 2 copies of Princess of the Azure Skies Ku, 2/1 size 0. It has has the free ability One Who Reigns over the skies. One Who Reigns the skies. Sorry, not over. When an item attacks on my field, I get to draw a card, and it gets plus 3k power for the turn. And sorry. One Who Reigns the Skies can only be used once per turn. So that's why I like only 2 Kuteto, because since multiple copies wouldn't be great on the same field, it's just good to just be able to get her out of the deck with Familiar Blitz, or getting it back from the drop with Vantage Midnight or something. So just easy access with just 2 copies. Then on to the size ones, we have 2 copies of Justice Envoy Angel Frill. She's soul removal. Whenever a superhero or guardian enters other than this card, it allows you to remove a soul from any card on your opponent's field. And you gain a life when you have 5 or less cards in drop when she attacks, and she has move. So she's basically just like Racer Frill in a way, but it's more so when she's already on the field, and then something else gets called, then you get to remove soul, which is almost as valuable as a draw. And but it's just because Soul is getting a little less relevant, because only things like Requiem and a few size 3s that go out, like Gaian and other things, have Soul. There's not too many decks that use a lot of Soul, like facing Thunder Empire, or like things like just even this matchup, like there's only like 1 or 2 cards that possibly that have Soul, so it's like it's not really all that relevant. So I don't want to see this a lot in against offensive decks, because it doesn't really have much value. Then we have 4 copies of my buddy Racer Frill, so just not going to go into more explanation there. Then we have 4 copies of Familiar Plitz. Oh, sorry. Familiar Plitz is a 2/1 2 size 1 with the ability to search a superheroine or the specifically Bandage Warrior Mass Vantage. He has a call cost to pay 1 gauge, and his ability when he enters the field. And he just is a mascot, so he's not really great because he's not a superheroine, so it doesn't really help proc other things off, or you can't return him back to the hand with Wrath Maiden Frill. So it's just like it's just there for the searches, and then you just pretty much get rid of him off the field. But he's just still pretty necessary as a monster, just because it makes your entire monster lineup pretty much searchable, except Midnight Vantage. Then we have one of my new favorites, Uniform Warrior Dr. Frill, 3-2-1. I almost said Dr. Phil, goddammit. 3-2-1, size 1, move, and whenever it's destroyed or returned in hand, you gain a life and destroy a size 2 or less on your opponent's field. It's just really great with Sailor Barrier, just protecting it and then gaining a life if you choose the second effect, because all it has to be is destroy for the ability, and Sailor Barrier lets it be destroyed, but it does remain on field instead. So it's just really, really good to combo with that second ability for once with a card. Other than that, it's just pretty good as this size 1, just 2 crit, free to call, move, very essential for this deck just because move is just always just so annoying for your opponent to deal with. Then we have 2 copies of Uniform Warrior of Darkness Garterfrill, 6/2/2, size 2, with the move ability, and whenever another card on your field returns to the hand, you can also return this card to your hand. And during either attack phase, if she leaves the field, you deal 1 damage to your opponent. So just really, really good to just go for 2 on your turn, and then when you want to advantage it back, you can return it and then burn them, or just let it die and then burn them. It's just a decent backup if you don't get into Wrath of Maiden, or you just use her for damage because she's just free to call and stuff. Then we have, of course, for the main card of the deck, we have 4 copies of Wrath of Maiden Blazer Frill. She's 6/3/3, size 2, with the call cost of putting a superheroine from your field into a soul and paying a gauge, and it has move, soul guard, and the abilities to give 2k power to all your cards, and at the end of a superheroine battle that it attacked, you can return it to the hand. So it basically makes all your things boomerang. So it makes Coup a boomerang when your item attacks. It makes Jewelry Frill give you a gauge and a life when it returns back. So it's just really, really good with those kind of cards. And Dr. Frill, of course, let you gain life and pop. Then we have 4 copies of your basically items, but they're monsters that you transform into. It's Lost Memory Mass Vantage Midnight. It has 7/5 for stats, and has the counteract. When a superhero is destroyed, you can transform into this card by paying its transform cost, which is 2 gauge, and returning up to 1 item on your field to the hand. And whenever it's transformed into, you can add back a superheroine from your drop zone to your hand. So it just really helps when, say, like, you put something useful like Dr. Frill into the soul of Wrath of Maiden. So when Wrath of Maiden's destroyed, then you can get back to Dr. Frill, or get back herself after she's fully destroyed or something. So it's just really good to be able to get back your stuff during your opponent's turn. So they may be able to see where you might be going, but it doesn't mean they'll always be prepared for it. Then, of course, the main one and the original, we have 4 copies of Bandage Warrior Mass Vantage, 7/6, size 3. It doesn't really matter. Call cost is 2 gauge, but I still don't call them 7/2. And it has the counteract to whenever your superheroine is being attacked, then you can transform into this card by paying its transform cost, which is 1 gauge, in order to return that attacked superheroine to your hand. So, of course, proccing off things like Garter, Jewelry, and, of course, Doctor. But it's just really just helpful just in general to get back your superheroines when they're being attacked. It prevents you from being penetrated from certain attacks if you move them to the center. So it's just really, really good. Onto the spells, we have 3 copies of Tears Don't Suit a Maiden. It's got 2 abilities. Either you use the Drago Energy ability of giving it a superheroine plus 3k in power and defense and counterattack for a battle, or you can use the more practical ability, which I use a lot, gain a life, and add back a superheroine from your drop zone to your hand. so you can start getting back your fields when people are destroying them. It just gives a lot of an extra consistency to the deck, because Plitz can add them back from the deck to the hand, or you can get them back from drop with Midnight and this. Then we have 4 copies of Hyper Energy. Sorry, with 3 dash art and the 1 trial deck art. This is all I got. It's just top 4 gauge, and you can only cast 1 Hyper Energy per turn. It's one of the basic staples of Hero World. Just the deck gets a little gauge heavy, so Hyper Energy is there to help it out. Then we have 4 copies of Sailor Barrier. It has 1 or 2 abilities. You can only cast it when you have a superheroine on your field. You can either nullify an attack, simple as that, and you can choose, or you can choose a superheroine. You can choose a superheroine. It's still destroyed, but it remains on field instead of going to the drop zone. So just in general, with Dr. Frill, it's really good. And just in general, you mainly use the nullifying effect to stop things like penetrate or other things to mess you up. So just really good. The main null of the deck. Then we have basically 4 copies, but what this is the thing I was talking about before. This is 2 copies of I've seen 2 moves and 2 copies of 10,000 Years Too Early. I don't hate this kind of lineup. I actually kind of like it, but I would prefer having 4 100,000 Years Too Early, and 100,000 Years Too Early can only be used when you, the player, are being attacked, or basically, since it's a Hero World, your item or such, you can counter, nullify the attack, and for the turn, your item gets plus 1k defense, and it stacks. So if you have multiple of these can keep stacking. So against certain decks, making it harder for them to hit you would be really good. But of course, I've seen your moves is a old staple. But if you don't know what it does, it's basically like Holy Grail. You can only nullify an attack during opponent's turn if you have an open center. So it's just they're just both really good defense cards. But I just prefer 10,000 Years Too Early. But I've seen 3 moves is still not bad because it can help protect monsters. But I just feel Sailor Barrier is already enough protection and advantages. So I would just prefer more ways to defend me, solely. Then we have the last 3 cards to make out the even 50. We have Blazer. It's an impact. You can only cast if you have a superheroine and a card with mass advantage in its card name on your field. Cast cost a pay 2 gauge, and you give a superheroine plus 2 critical, stand it up, and it attacks, and its attack cannot be nullified. So you just like, oh, your opponent's like, oh man, I hope I can just live just a good just all your attacks during the attack phase. Then they live it. It's like, oh, I'm at like 4 or 5. Then you go Blazer, give Rafa Maiden plus 2 crit. Now it's 5 crit, can't be nullified. Attack them, they're dead. And then if they're not dead, if you have enough gauge, like you Hyper Energy or something that turn, bam, do another one, and you kill them, because you can do this more than once per turn, because it's just a regular impact. Just really like the card. It helps you get those big push plays that some people don't see coming, and even if they do see coming, some decks like that only have nullifiers and maybe no rest cards really can't deal with it. And anyway, hope you guys like this video. Subscribe to TeamBurningInfinitey for more Buddyfight content, and we'll bring you guys more deck profiles soon. Anyway, see you guys later. Jalen from TeamBurningInfinitey going out.